Good afternoon and welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. Hope the week has gone well. Let me start with some macro thoughts. The pound closed below 129 for the first time in 7 sessions, the market is reporting, and we're currently at 128.60 or thereabouts. And essentially it fell because of the Brexit standoff, which is pushing Boris to seek an election. Bloomberg is calling it Brexit's catch-22. London awaits EU move as EU may wait for United Kingdom. Boris Johnson's abrupt push for snap elections and Jeremy Corbyn's response that he will only agree if the European Union decides on Friday to grant a comfortable Brexit extension has put an obscure group of Brussels-based diplomats into an awkward position. The group of EU ambassadors known as Coreper 2 is due to meet Friday morning to discuss the length of the third extension due to be granted to the United Kingdom. The plan was to reach a consensus, allowing the bloc's governments to sign off on the recommendation via a written procedure without convening a second leaders' summit in less than 2 weeks. That was before the British Prime Minister announced on Thursday his push for an election on December the 12th in order to end the Brexit gridlock. Let's wait and see if there will be an election before we do fiction politics. That's Amélie de Montchalin, France's junior Minister for European Affairs. If there are elections not just called for but announced and scheduled, then we can take a decision. So catch-22 on both sides, and the Europeans obviously don't want to interfere in what are considered the internal affairs of the United Kingdom. So my view is we're still in a standoff. I can't see sterling running away back above 129, back towards 130. I think we're going to grind lower as this level of political uncertainty becomes absorbed by the market. This is a chart from FX Pip Titan and last trading 128.56. Home thoughts. This is from the EU ambassador Mordieu. A nice view of Mount Longonot from the air on the way to Turkana many years ago. When I think I was about 11, we climbed up Mount Longonot, went around the perimeter, and the children did the same thing around the same age. This is Jabali Ridge by Acilia Africa in the Ruaha National Park. This is from Gilead Terry. Looks pretty fantastic, and I watched a fantastic series of documentaries about lion prides in the Ruaha National Park, and there's a clip I've got here, Lion Kingdom Pride and Punishment, the bear bab and the inja. You've got to watch it, it's unputdownable. And it's really speaks to how nature can be nasty, brutish, and short. This is one of Salvo's true iconic Tuskers, coded BA1. This photograph is from the 7th of August, Salvo Trust. Believe it or not, BA1 is very similar in terms of ivory size and weight to the world-famous Tusker called Ahmed of Marsabit in the 1970s. Salvo arguably holds the lion's share of the last remaining true Tuskers left on the planet. Really remarkable. Look at the size of the tusks. I still, it started off by watching a Western and somebody's dead and the preacher starts quoting Ecclesiastes, vanity of vanities, says the preacher, vanity of vanities, all is vanity, there is no remembrance of former things, nor will there be any remembrance of later things yet to be among those who come after. And kind of stuck in my mind and reverberated there for weeks now. This is a photograph of Mombasa taken by Ahmed Salems, and you can see the effect of the Indian Ocean dipole, the rain system that's hit the coast. It looks wonderfully green. Then Oliver Mathenge tweeted, "Can this be referred to as a carpet to nowhere?" And that took me back to Talking Heads' Road to Nowhere. Political reflections, left 14th of October, right 24th of October, John Marquet. Goes back to exactly four years ago, October 2015, when Putin turned up at Unga. And he said, "I cannot help asking those who have caused the situation, do you realize now what you have done?" And I concluded that article by saying Putin fancies himself the flycatcher, Syria the fly trap, and that the speed of execution confirms that Russia is once again a geopolitical actor that will have to be considered. And I concluded by saying it's a breathtaking rebound, and I think if you look at it from that point to today, and you look at the symbolism of John Marquet's tweet, it is a remarkable rebound. Europe's prestigious human rights award, the Sakharov Prize, goes to Ilham Tohti, a member of the Muslim ethnic Uyghur minority, mostly living in China. Tohti is currently serving life in prison. I've written about Xinjiang several times. I said in March 2018, China has unveiled a digital panopticon in Xinjiang. In my recent article about the new anger that we're seeing, I said the current modus operandi is running on empty. And I quoted an article I read about Xinjiang from Haaretz. Children are being taken from their parents who are confined in concentration camps and being put in Chinese orphanages. Women in the camps are receiving inoculations that make them infertile. This is a statement from Mr. Tohti's daughter. "When my dad first started speaking up for the Uyghurs, he knew he could end up in prison, but he decided to take on this fight and continue on for other people's sake." China's biggest meeting of the year gives leaders an opportunity to talk about the Hong Kong protests, China's ruling Communist Party. And I would argue the Communist Party is really the meeting that counts more than the China at 70 party they had recently, will hold its most important gathering of the year from October 28 to 31, state-run Xinhua news agency said, giving its leadership an opportunity to discuss issues such as the pro-democracy protests in Hong Kong. The plenum, a full meeting of the Communist Party's Central Committee, is a venue to pass decisions on major topics and involves more than 200 party leaders from the government, military, and state-owned enterprises. The committee will discuss key issues related to maintaining and improving China's socialist system and national governance, Xinhua reported in August. The economy is, of course, expanding at just 6%. I don't believe that number, the slowest in almost 3 decades, although there are signs it could be stabilizing. In many respects, this meeting is considerably more important than the parade and the celebrations that we saw at China Turn 70, where I quoted DeLillo because of the sheer scale and grandeur of these celebrations. DeLillo says, "Longing on a large scale makes history." 27th of May, in one fell swoop, President Xi Jinping was president for life. I said he's on a pedestal. And indeed he is. My recent article was The New Economy of Anger. I was writing about how the revolutionary contingent attains its ideal form not in the place of production, but in the street, where for a moment it stops being a cog in the technical machine and itself becomes a motor, a machine of attack. In other words, a producer of speed. I was also quoting Kapuscinski: revolution must be distinguished from revolt, coup d'etat, palace takeover. A coup or a palace takeover may be planned, but a revolution never. Its outbreak, the hour of that outbreak, takes everyone, even those who've been striving for it, unawares. They stand amazed at the spontaneity that appears suddenly and destroys everything in its path. It demolishes so ruthlessly that in the end it may annihilate the ideals that called it into being. And I was saying, what we're witnessing today is a revolution, and it's a global phenomenon. Kapuscinski again: if the crowd disperses, goes home, does not reassemble, we say the revolution is over. And I'm saying it's not over, and more people are gathering in the streets. You've got to watch this interview, AOC, Alexandria Cortez, interviewing Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg. Parker Molloy says she's very, very good at this. She's excellent. Look at the colour of his ears. He can't handle her. And it really, the point she's making are completely correct. Facebook is a publishing platform. It must accept some responsibility for the quality of information it's feeding its users. This is from an article in Esquire. Silicon Valley behemoth that has seized on the refusal or incapability of lawmakers from both parties to regulate it and stretched its tentacles every which way, while accepting little of the responsibility that comes with growing so large and so powerful. Has assumed the role of informational gatekeeper in our society, one formerly held by major news networks and newspapers, except it has assumed none of the responsibility that comes with that, refusing in any consistent way to filter the information served to great masses of people, built on quality and accuracy. The result is that Facebook, using public, has been exposed to a fire hose of misinformation, including some served up by people trying to undermine a democracy. It is poisoning us. 26th of March, I wrote about this. I started by quoting, we just put information into the bloodstream, to the internet, and then watch it grow, give it a little push every now and again over time to watch it take shape, and so this stuff infiltrates the online community and expands with no branding, so it's unattributable, untraceable. It's no use fighting elections on the facts, it's all about emotions. So the candidate is the puppet, the undercover reporter asked. Always, replied Mr. Neeks. And I said, in an extraordinary boomerang, the US's adversaries have turned social media on its head and used it as a Trojan horse via psychographic profiling and micro-targeting at a mass scale. The fundamental challenge for Facebook is this: it has represented itself as an intermediary. An intermediary works as a personal agent on behalf of consumers to help them take control over information gathered about them. The concept of the intermediary was first suggested by John Hagel in the book Net Worth. However, Facebook has been hawking this information as if it were an intermediary. This is its trust gap. That gap is set to widen further. Facebook, I said, is facing an existentialist crisis. Spain yesterday exhumed the remains of the dictator Francisco Franco from a grandiose state mausoleum near Madrid. It really looks grandiose. Since his death 44 years ago, Franco's body has reposed inside a vast, imposing basilica in the Valley of the Fallen, some 50 kilometers northwest of Madrid. Long attracted both tourists and right-wing sympathizers. Ahead of the operation, 22 members of the late dictator's family arrived at the site carrying wreaths to witness the exhumation, which began shortly before 11 a.m. Ed Snowden, US government could have prevented 9/11. This is via Zero Hedge. When you look back at the 9/11 report, it's very clear to me as someone who worked in the intelligence community that these attacks could have been prevented. I recently was writing about Saudi Arabia, but I started by talking about 9/11, saying there's always more to it. This is what history consists of. It is the sum total of things they aren't telling us. At that point, it was the anniversary of 9/11, and I said it is increasingly apparent that more Americans are questioning the official 9/11 story as new evidence contradicts the official narrative. The overwhelming evidence presented now demonstrates beyond any doubt that pre-planted explosives and/or incendiaries, not just airplanes, and the ensuing fires caused the destruction of the 3 World Trade Center buildings, killing the vast majority of the victims who perished that day. I also said the official narrative around the assassination of JFK has been similarly debunked. 2 great American writers have touched on this. Don DeLillo, in his book Libra, There is a World Inside the World. There's always more to it. This is what history consists of. It is the sum total of the things they aren't telling us. Thomas Pynchon in Bleeding Edge. No matter how the official narrative of this turns out, it seemed to Heidi, these are the places we should be looking, not in newspapers or television, but at the margins, graffiti, uncontrolled utterances, bad dreamers who sleep in public and scream in their sleep. Let's move on to the currency markets. Euro dollar 111.05, dollar index 97.659, Japanese yen 108.65, Swiss franc 0.9923, the pound 128.36. I think we're sliding to 125 again. The Australian dollar, about which I'm more constructive, 0.6826. I think that moves back towards 0.70. India rupee 70.9705. South Korean won 1173.20. The rial at 40408. Egyptian pound up 10% year to date, 16.15, and the rand coming towards the top of the range at 14.65. This is a dollar index chart from the market here. You can see it bounced again off the 200-day moving average, and it remains in that bull channel, though towards the lower bound of it. Euro dollar, this is a chart from FX Pip Titan, last trading at 111.05. I'm looking for this to sort of stabilize around these levels now. This is a chart of European 10-year bond yields from Holger, which speaks to that Wizard of Oz world I was speaking about, where eventually it is revealed that Oz is actually none of these things, but rather an ordinary conman from Omaha, Nebraska, who has been using elaborate magic tricks and props to make himself seem great and powerful. Essentially what I'm saying is that these bond deals are a complete fiction. Bitcoin, about which I've written many times, but the last time I wrote was on the 30th of September, when I said it's trading like everybody's long and looks like it's set to deteriorate, and I said it could fall as far as $1,000, which is where it was in January 2017. Currently, we're at 7,470. And my target is 1,000, but then we can go to 15,000 before we get there, but 1,000 is where we're going. I've written about the crypto avocado, millennial economy, the zeitgeist of a time is its defining spirit or its mood. Capturing the zeitgeist of the now is not an easy thing because we're living in a dizzyingly fluid moment. Gladwell stated ideas and products and messages and behaviors spread like viruses do. My point is that the millennials discovered the virtues of avocado, the behavior spread like a virus, and boom, prices skyrocketed. The avocado price surge is an example of the new 21st century millennial economy. And then Tracy Alloway tweeted, Bitcoin drops to lowest level since June. The avocados told me this would happen. I've written about Trump being highly tuned to the markets and being something of a 21st century artiste. His positive trade war tweets timed around the US market hours, designed to soothe, massage and finesse US asset prices, turns more negative. In Chinese trading hours, I called it next level gaming, and that there are few leaders I can recall that have appreciated the purity of the market signal and played the game at this Yehudi Menuhin virtuoso level. And I concluded by saying, of course, Carl Icahn, who's a friend of his, has stayed real close. And then there's a very interesting article in the Wall Street Journal about Carl Icahn, about handing over to his son. He's got two paintings. One is, there's a small tin sign that shows a man playing poker. He's a poker player, and reads, bluffing, a pair of balls beats everything, which I thought was rather amusing. He's 83 years old, and he's got a succession plan. For over a year, on and off, father and son have been negotiating an arrangement that has already stretched to a roughly 90-page contract. So that's pretty amusing. Tesla, whoa, popped 16.5% on Thursday to just short of $300 per share, meaning short sellers betting against the stock are on track for a $1.4 billion mark-to-market loss on the day. Have a look at this chart from J.S. Blockland. Tough day for Tesla perma bears. I concluded by saying I've got to commend Elon Musk for teaching the world about what a short squeeze really looks and feels like. This is it. Goodness. Massive volumes also, according to the market here, on that stock surge. So the pips squeaked, as it were. Moving on to gold, which recovered strongly yesterday. We're now at 1506. WTI crude oil has had a great week, last trading at $56. And you know, I was bullish about this, but now I'm out of it. Emerging markets, look at this Lebanese 2-year dollar paper via the market here for the brave, or is it the foolhardy? Sub-Saharan Africa, the headline figure that 90% of the world's economies are slowing down means shrinking markets, wobbly currencies, and a shortage of investment capital is going to reverberate around Africa. That's from Africa Confidential. And that goes back to what I was writing on the 14th of October when I said you will agree that the overall picture is not very pretty. And I said the canary in the coal mine is Zambia. Tunisia's new president, how memes and viral videos led to a Robocop revolution, 1843 magazine. As the exit polls from the first round of the Tunisian presidential election emerged, a video from 2013 went viral. It showed the inside of a radio studio, its walls shaking as if hit by an earthquake. A journalist clutches the table before backing against the wall to steady himself. There is screaming, but the guest, the newly elected president of Tunisia, Kais Saied, barely flinches. He sits there stony-faced, then he checks his watch. He won, in the final round of voting, he won 90% of the votes from the 18 to 25-year-olds. He took 73% overall, has no political party, is outside the system. The euphoria on the street made up for the lack of joy inside's glassy grey eyes. The 61-year-old non-partisan, socially conservative law lecturer has become a cult figure among young people in Tunisia. He stands straight as an arrow and speaks his own version of classical Arabic instead of the usual Tunisian dialect. Weird people are sometimes cool. Keyboard activists are also serious and organize. Many Facebook groups, both secret and open to the public, encourage support for Saeed, who doesn't even have a Facebook account himself, though he says he uses Google sometimes. The scale and power of this online army was demonstrated when a boycott campaign resulted in the El Hiwa Etunzi TV channel losing 1 million followers from its Facebook page in a matter of hours after the owner insulted Saeed. Socially conservative, which is something that people are a little bit concerned about. And that took me back to an article I wrote in January 2011 about Tunisia's Jasmine Revolution, because that's where all of this started. We are not afraid, we're not afraid, we're afraid only of God, the crowds chanted in Tunis. In too many places, in too many ways, the region's foundations are sinking into the sand, said Hillary Clinton. Those who cling to the status quo may be able to hold back the full impact of their country's problems for a little while, but not forever. If leaders don't offer a positive vision and give young people meaningful ways to contribute, others will fill the vacuum. I recall a friend and an ambassador telling me, Ali Khan, the revolution is coming. The question is, can it be managed? And I said then, the Jasmine Revolution will amplify two ways, through the Maghreb, and then it would be naive not to expect it to cross the Sahara and head south. Change is never incremental, it tips and surges. John Donne, therefore send not to know for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee. Thousands in Guinea are marching against the president's possible third term bid. Protesters chanted Amu Lanfe, it will not happen, in the local Susu language, and free the prisoners on their way to the capital, Conakry's largest stadium. It takes me back to 2014, November, Ouagadougou signaled to sub-Saharan Africa, and I said then, what's clear is that a very young, very informed and very connected African youth demographic, many characterize this as a demographic dividend, which for beautiful Blaise turned into a demographic terminator, is set to alter the existing equilibrium between the rulers and the subjects, and a rebalancing has begun. Russia-Africa Summit, this is a photograph of all the participants from Seika Bordoni. My conclusion is Putin's timing is exquisite, optimal. His model has an exponential ROI, and Z is interestingly at an end of vanity moment. So this timing is nearly perfect. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. There is no remembrance of former things, nor will there be any remembrance of later things, yet to be among those who have come after. I can imagine Putin showing everybody a photograph of a dead Gaddafi and a live Bashar, and saying, you know, the difference was me. And every contract that he wanted signed was signed within a second. He is a geopolitical grandmaster, as we've said before. He congratulated the chairman of the EAC, President Paul Kagame, on his birthday. We wish him all the best. He celebrates his birthday in our company of friends, he said. I've listened. It's brilliant. And as I said in December 2016, it's a parabolic Putin rebound, and it continues to be so. Ethiopia's Prime Minister Dr. Abiy Ahmed met with the Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi on the sidelines of the Russia-Africa Summit. Of course, there have been at loggerheads about the Nile. What Egypt wants is to make Ethiopia its hydrological colony, said Zeriguna Bebe Yigzor. Nothing much, just an AK-47 display. That's from the Moscow Times. Frelimo takes no chances despite claims that the election was won through fraud and violence. The results will stand and strengthen the president's hand, says Africa Confidential. Filipe Nyusi has won a second and final term of office with the second largest majority since multi-party elections began in 1994. They did stuff the ballots, obviously, and they threw around a lot of money that they were getting from the recent transactions around the gas. Zimbabwe declares a holiday today to protest against US sanctions. Zimbabweans will stay home Friday after their government declared a public holiday, saying people should demonstrate against US sanctions rather than work. The sanctions are an act of terrorism against Zimbabwe, said ZANU-PF spokesman Simon Kaya Moyo. Zimbabwe has received more than $3 billion in US aid since 1980. And at least $300 million this year alone, the US ambassador to Zimbabwe, Brian Nichols, said. Our targeted sanctions are not responsible for Zimbabwe falling tragically short of its potential. The fault lies in the catastrophic mismanagement by those in power and the government's own abuse of its citizens, Nichols tweeted on Thursday. Here you see people walking on a kopje overlooking the city of Harare, Zimbabwe. South African all shares up 5.2%, but you would have thought it would have done better with the gold price, but I think it's all about 10-cent weakness, which is not supporting it. Dollar Rand, 14.65, 14.50 is key. Egypt's local bonds have gained 39% in dollar terms in 2019. That's more than 7 times the average return across emerging markets, according to Bloomberg Barclays indices. Egyptian pound 16.149, EGX 30 up 8.98% year to date. Nigerian all share down 16.14% year to date. Ghana's stock exchange down 13.74% year to date. Look at this photograph. This is Tony Gachoka interviewing the governor of Nairobi at his residence in Runda. It's an advert for Versace. Kenya's Mombasa port to upgrade 4 berths at 20 billion shillings. Exports apparently make up just 15% of the cargo that goes through Mombasa every year, with a third of the total belonging to neighbouring countries. Annual cargo traffic through the port is projected to jump to 47 million tonnes in 2025 from 32 million tonnes last year, Manduku said in an interview at the port. It's ranked the 5th busiest, according to the KPA, after Morocco's Tangier Med, Egypt's Port Said, South Africa's Durban and Nigeria's Lagos, and wants to rise to number 3, apparently. I've spoken about the Indian Ocean economy in a port race. I said today from Massawa, Eritrea, admittedly on the Red Sea, to Djibouti, from Berbera to Mogadishu, from Lamu to Mombasa to Tanga to Bagamoyo to Dar es Salaam, through Beira and Maputo, all the way to Durban and all points in between. We're witnessing a port race of sorts as everyone seeks to get a piece of the Indian Ocean port action. China, the BRI initiative, the Gulf countries who now appear to see the Horn of Africa as their hinterland, Japan and India to a lesser degree, are all jostling for optimal geo-economic positioning. From hotbed of crime to jogger's paradise, Nairobi forest thrives. We would collect dead, dumped bodies. Some were decomposing, others were fresh, said John Chege of his early days policing Nairobi's Karura forest, back when thieves and murderers outnumbered joggers and dog walkers in the woods. Karura then was the stuff of urban legend, a fearsome place involved scared misbehaving children. Chege and his scouts, stumbling on corpses by day, kept white-knuckled vigils by night as they scanned the darkness for intruders. It was hell, Chege told AFP of his hair-raising first months as Karura's inaugural chief scout back in 2009, when efforts began to reclaim the forest. But today we celebrate because there is nothing of the sort. Kenya's forests are cleared at a rate of 5,000 hectares a year. That looks a very low number. From 0 visitors in 2009, today Karura attracts up to 30,000 nature lovers a month. Karura Forest in 2009 was a place where no one would even want to be threatened to be taken. It meant either you're going to be killed or that you're going to be punished. 1,000 hectares of prime land. Forest contains rivers, waterfalls, caves used by anti-colonial rebels. Joggers encounter bushbucks, hornbills, and Sykes monkeys. According to Save the Elephant, one of northern Kenya's largest tuskers, a celebrated African savanna elephant called Matt, has sadly died, aged 52. During his lifetime, he roamed further than any other Kenyan elephant tracked by Save the Elephants, nearly circumventing Mount Kenya from Meru all the way to Laikipia. Nairobi All Shares up 6.86% in 2019. There's been a recovery there because of the banking stock. Safaricom appointed a new CEO. NSE 20 is down 12.335% year to date. Thank you for stopping by. Wishing you a terrific weekend.